Well, welcome everyone, wherever you are. We're all in our homes at the moment, and I think we're all grateful that we are. So let's enjoy the next couple of days, know that all is protected, and there is nothing we cannot handle that is brought before us. Now it's my turn to do the talk. So as usual, the weeks go on, and that writer's block sets in, and you just have to sometimes get on with life. And all of a sudden, in the midst of something completely different, you might be out cleaning the car, then you get an idea. It's not fair. And you don't have a pencil, so you come running in and you can't remember what it was. There's a few writers here today, I'm sure you know what I mean. But this is too important. Today's topic is wings as eagles. Sounds a bit ponderous. Before I give you its proper origin, I believe it was used in World War II when the BBC radio was sending secret messages to the leadership on the continent. And if they said this verse from Isaiah, wings as eagles, they knew it was action time. That's always stayed with me. So that beautiful verse, which I'm going to tell you about in a minute, because we're reminded that strength is the power of the month. That comes in with what we're going to be talking about. And also faith. The two were together. Strength and faith. In January, we had faith, and in February, we ask ourselves, how strong is our faith? All strength originates in spirit. Through our word, thought, and feeling, we invoke that power as we're meant to and use in this life. In our understanding that we are born of God's perfection, so that we are all spiritual beings expressing God at our own level of awareness. Some people say we are perfect. We were born perfect. And I'm glad I've got that clear, because there have been a few people over the years who've said, what are you worried about? We're perfect. But there's more to it than that. We are born perfect, but we unfold on the path of life, and as we do, we aim to express more and more of that perfection. And that perfection is what we came here to be, eventually going from Adam all the way through to Christ consciousness, represented by Jesus. To do this, we must have strength of spirit. We need it to help cope with the ups and downs of this human life. And as we know, this is a life of ups and downs, and we have to aim to be as close to the middle as possible. I don't think we'll ever be in the middle. I think with our teachings, we're taught that whether we're up or down, we have that strength within us to cope with wherever we are at that time. So it's vital for us to have this inner strength and turn inwards every day. We need it every day to commune with our own God self and give thanks that this unfailing strength is always there, which can show up in ways we never expected. Some days you think, oh, this is it, I can't go on. Then you turn the radio on and there's a song, just like that. It uplifts us. Or we might be reading a book and there's a verse that speaks to us. Why didn't it speak to us before? And these other things that we've heard a million times, but yet at certain times we just stop and think, yeah, that's resonating with me at the moment. Thank you, God. We acknowledge that. Or sometimes a friend will ring at a very strange time, but it's just what we need. Now here it is. In Isaiah 40, verse 31, that incredible verse, those that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. and not be weary, and they shall walk and not faint. I love that verse. Now, as you know, when you come to see us at the sanctuary, we have a lectern. It's an old lectern, and some people think it's got some weird sign on it. When we've had a function there, some people say, "What's that? Is that a secret conspiracy sign?" No. It's the winged globe. You all have seen it. And I think we just take it for granted. Sometimes we look past it. But Charles Fillmore explains it this way. This represents the relation between spirit, soul, and body. As humankind develops spiritual consciousness.
I can see all the people in it now. They've on the left-hand side. I always have it with
Helena,
hear me.
you're not muted.
It's orange with an exclamation mark. Audio.
You can mute her.
Up. Please check.
Can you do that, Wendy? Thank you. Well, okay, where was I? I was in the middle of something, but it was important, and I haven't lost my place. But I'm going to start again about the meaning of the winged globe. Charles Fillmore states, it represents the relation between spirit, soul, and body. And as we develop this spiritual consciousness, humankind develops spiritual consciousness, they obtain a realization of the soul as the wings of the body. Back of the soul is the spirit, which quickens and energizes the soul, that it gives the soul wings. To me, this sums up beautifully what I pass on to those who inquire about the winged globe. Now, about the soul. We don't have a soul. We are, as described in Genesis 2, a living soul. We occupy states of consciousness for varying periods to learn the lessons that lead to unfoldment and into successive expanded states of consciousness. Just let me get this right. That's it. Now, mainstream churches talk about the Holy Trinity, Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Now, in Unity, a new thought, we see ourselves as a trinity of spirit, soul, and body, a microcosm in the macrocosm. Now, spirit is our perfect self, the real self, which is part of the Great Spirit. We are it in expression, but it's humbling to realize that we didn't invent it. Just as every drop of water has the same substance as a big lake or the ocean, so everyone's spirit is perfect. There used to be a saying going around, we are just a drop in the ocean, and that was corrected over the years. We are the ocean in a drop. Some of these old sayings are really coming up again with a different twist. Now, soul. Soul is everything that is going on in our mind, thoughts, beliefs, feelings, and attitudes. Our soul dictates how we live. And that's a worry, because half the time we don't know what's in the soul. It's on a subconscious level. That's why we do our spiritual tools, to get in there and try and get behind some of these things that make us react without thinking sometimes. They're lurking there, but gradually as we expand, we think, got you. As Moses went to the Pharaoh, we want out of here. But Moses had to go on and be strong before Pharaoh, representing that subconscious part of us, says, okay, I'm tired, go. And even then, he wanted them back. And as we know, the story of the Red Sea and the 40 days in the wilderness, which we'll be talking about soon. So our soul dictates how our life is living. Our body. For better or worse, it's the home of God, to be used here in this physical world. Our body is the temple of the living God. And we need it, because all those things, body, mind, and spirit, we can't have one without the other. Now, I know you've heard me say this, but I like it, you're hearing me say it, so I'm going to say it again. David Henry Thoreau, good for the body is the work of the body. Good for the soul is the work of the soul. And good for either is the work of the other. How pithy is that, but pleasant. I love it. Now, our soul changes as we add more experiences to it. And in this human incarnation, we can only express as much of this infinite power as the body and mind can handle according to physical law here in the physical world. Everything in the physical world has a use-by date. We've heard the story of when Rumi told everyone that our bones are the rocks. Our flesh is the vegetation, and our blood is the water. We are made up of the same elements as the rest of the planet. So eventually, in the fullness of time, our soul will take flight, as symbolized by that winged globe, and seek other forms to express more of the infinite spirit in whom we live, move, and have our being. But while we're here, we still have lessons to learn. But that doesn't stop us from expressing the joy of life and the fruits of the Spirit. And aren't they amazing? We are so blessed here on this physical plane. And the more people that realize these spiritual truths, the better and better it will be for this incarnation. The power of strength is vital for us as we go through life. And along with it comes another word starting with S, stamina. That's the ability to keep on. As the song says, keep right on to the end of the road. And my father and mother, being Scottish, sometimes they used to have this Scottish music. They used to have bagpipes, for goodness sakes. And there'll be bagpipes playing through the house. And I love bagpipes now, and not necessarily with backing Jimmy Barnes or Johnny Farnham, but in a band that's actually playing really good Scottish Highland music. But there was a song by Kenneth McKellar. It was called Keep Right On to the End of the Road. And my mother had this LP on this old record player. And occasionally we'd get home from school and this would be blasting and we'd think, my goodness, Mother needed some strength today because that song is playing again. But it gave her strength. Music can do that. Beethoven says music is a power higher than words. Well, don't tell that to some of the great authors. I think a combination is both, and opera in particular, is just out of this world. So there are different types of strength: physical, mental, and spiritual. Physical strength, when we're young, we aim to cultivate it. And when I was doing my Aikido, which is a gentle form of martial arts, it didn't really help me. I'd rather just run. But anyway, we learned about the power of ki, the chi power in us. And we were taught the unbendable arm, where you hold your arm out and you imagine that your ki power coming up through into that arm, and you imagine that arm stretching out to infinity. And then the instructor comes and tries to bend the arm. Well, he couldn't. And I just thought, well, there it is. He can't bend it. I don't do that anymore, and I especially don't tell people about it after a glass of wine, because it doesn't work. But it was a great example to me of the chi power we have in us, which is God power, and the things we can do. And when I was young, the great physical strength feats of the great Apollo, who was in Melbourne in the 60s and 70s. There were shots of him going up Collins Street, carrying an elephant on the back of a truck, pulling it with ropes. Him, one person, pulling this truck with an elephant on it. Well, it certainly helped his gym membership. So then we have mental strength. Keep right on to the end of the road. Not easy. We know we've all had disciplines we've had to work at. In my case, getting down to the piano every day to get my music ready for my exams at the conservatorium, it was torture some days. In the morning, I'd get up at 7. I had no neighbours. I lived in a place behind the Hotel Esplanade with a garage underneath me so I could practice whenever I wanted. It's a bit of a dive, but it was good. No one knew I was there, except when I was playing the piano. But I would start playing and think, oh God, and you go through the first few bars. Then by the time you get into your music, you could go all day. Something stirs up inside us and makes us keep on going. Thank you, God. Now, emotional strength. Wow. Those who know their Shakespeare, and I don't know too much of him, but I know some of the wonderful verses. We did study him a little bit at high school, but it didn't mean much to me then, as it does now. Hamlet, Act 3, those famous lines, to be or not to be. Continuing, whether it is noble in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles by opposing them. You know what it's like when everyone is against you. I know what it's like, and there's everyone here it's part of life. We never know when it's going to happen, because we're all at different stages. So here again, that's where the golden rule seems to be the rule of the month for me. So we've got to develop that inner strength. Some of the poetry read at school spoke of mental strength. Rudyard Kipling in his poem, If. I'm not going to quote it, but here again, it's one of those things you're reading and think, oh yes, I remember that from school, and it does have another depth to it. And one of the lines is, if you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, and here's where we'll have to change the gender. It says, you'll be a man, my son, but we change that to, you'll be a fully developed human being, words to that effect. You'll be a woman, my son, woman, my daughter, whatever pronoun you want to use there, use it. But if you can do it, it'll help us on the road to being a human being. Spiritual strength. Aren't we fortunate to have those fellow travellers and those ancient writings to help us? They've helped us on the way by going before us. And the stamina it must have taken in those days before modern communications, and the belief in themselves that they had to have had. One strong spiritual leader who many of you know, who was born in 1895, that is Krishnamurti. He was being promoted by the Theosophical Society as a world teacher, a world messiah. But eventually he discarded that role. But in so doing, he became probably more profound to people. He says, in oneself lies the whole world. And if you know how to look and learn, then the door is there and the key is in your hand. Nobody on earth can give you either that key or the door to open except yourself. We can go to classes, we can read books, and isn't it tempting when a new one comes out with the latest cover? Podcast after podcast. But there comes a time when we have to do it. As the Fifth Unity Principle says, knowing it's okay, but to work it, you have to do it. Now, these teachings haven't been a secret. They've been there all the time. But it's only when we are ready for it and our soul lets us know one way or another. Now, it's been said that this is a bit outrageous, there's only one thing God can't do. Yes, believe it or not. God cannot rise above our level of awareness, because we are that level of awareness, we are that God in action according to how we see it. But our higher self is waiting for us while we go through the rituals in life, and eventually says, we say to it, not my will, but thy will be done. Now, I'm just looking at the time, I realise I better move on. So even Jesus had last-minute doubts in his agony. And he said, last few words were, Father, if you are willing, take this cup from me, yet not my will, but thine be done. So eventually we will have to follow the way of our higher self. And a chapter which has been a great help to me over the last couple of weeks, and I'm going to read it for you. It's very rarely I read a bit of the Bible, but it's from the book of John 14, verse 1 to 6. It's the King James Version. I know there are better versions, but I was brought up on this one. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go to prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you unto myself, that where I am, that you may be also. End of the Bible reading. In Unity, we take many of the stories of the Bible metaphysically. The metaphysical Bible and the revealing words are gems for us on the path. They reveal a key to understanding many of the stories. In the revealing word, Unity co-founder Charles Fillmore states, Jesus represents the I am in us. It is our own inner Christ self that is speaking to us about the journey of our own soul throughout eternity, and the many states of consciousness that we go on through this journey. So, to start as I did at the beginning, another word meaning the same thing, by the way, is when the word Lord is used. That quote from Isaiah, as I mentioned earlier, use it how I explained it before from the revealing word. Those that wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles, and not be weary, and they shall walk and not faint. So as we apply our spiritual teachings, we find that we have inside us the Holy Grail, that inner power waiting to be called into action, giving us strength on all levels of our being, here and in the future, wherever that may be. So now I leave you with a song from, would you believe, the Catholic hymn book. Yes, we have it here. It's called On Eagle's Wings. Thank you, Rod.